Hello and welcome to another installment of Coffee Break on GoIndieNow. My name is Phoebe Darqueling. I'm author of the standalone novel Riftmaker, as well as the Mistress of None series, which starts with No Rest for the Wicked. It actually won the 2019 Pencraft Award for Gaslamp Fantasy. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about fate. So I am a plotter. All you writers know what that means. So I actually know very early in my process what the fate is going to be of my characters. For instance, the Mistress of None series is actually at least loosely plotted all the way through 5 books. So I needed to know where my character came from, what she's doing right now, and where she's going. And knowing that fate has allowed me to interweave some of the smaller characters in a more interesting way because it's going to culminate in one particular location. And several of these small characters have ties to that place too, so there are some cameo opportunities. I think the most important thing, though, for writers to understand about fate and the decisions that we make is that it's actually not set in stone. I know early on when I started writing, I had this distinct feeling that, oh, I wrote it, it exists, this is real, that's what happened. But that's kind of the beauty of storytelling rather than real life, is that it can change, especially if some needs are identified, if the characterization isn't strong enough, or you need a relationship to change. So that's my biggest advice when it comes to fate, is don't get precious about what you've already written, because it's always possible to change it, and ultimately it can strengthen your overall story. Some of the questions here about fate that you might have heard from some of the other authors are about situations I haven't actually experienced very much myself. For instance, Joe asks about changing a character in response to fans or falling in or out of love with them. I haven't really experienced that because I plot so much from the beginning, though I have had the experience with Riftmaker, for instance. I might continue the series. It does stand alone, but I have ideas for what direction the series would go in. And I have a traveler character, and so not traveler in the Romani kind of way, but he actually is an interdimensional traveler, and it's very difficult on the brain. And so I talk about that. People usually go crazy when they've been traveling through these rifts in time and space. But I actually do deeply love the character so much that I was really struggling with this because it felt like, on a narrative standpoint, I needed him to go crazy. But I also really love who he is. And the character himself is actually based on my dog. So, who my dog would be if he suddenly woke up in a human body. And unfortunately, Gadget passed earlier this year. So, that also makes it really difficult to think about torturing this character that I've come to love, based on this real person, that I also loved so deeply. So I had already decided not to do that to the character, but I think ultimately it would have pushed me over the edge in that direction anyway, losing the basis for the character. I want to respect what's already there. So I need to find some other way to fill that same narrative gap, but I'm confident that I can do it if I do decide to continue with the series. So there's also some questions about characters speaking up for themselves, and asking you to change things, and I that is a very real problem for a lot of writers. I find that I learn the most about my characters when I put them in conversation with each other. So it's during the course of writing that I often get to know them. And so quite often I will have a character suddenly say something that I hadn't been expecting. So even though I'm a plotter, the actual unfolding of the way that the characters interact with each other happens on the page more often than not. For instance, in No Rest for the Wicked or the Mistress of None series, there's a character named Bonnie, and she's very young and she's very sweet, and she needed to fulfill some. She was a foil for the main character, who's this really hard bitten grifter, um, who's really down on the world. So I needed this optimistic foil in order to sort of balance them out. But the longer these two characters are going to be together, the more they're going to start coming towards each other in the middle, much to the main character's horror. This she sort of feels like she's corrupting this younger woman. And so it wasn't until they were actually talking to each other that Bonnie said, "I want you to teach me how to fight," that I realized, of course, Bonnie wants to learn how to fight because she feels vulnerable and she wants to feel tougher. Um, and so that can certainly happen. And now it's become an essential part to the second book in the Mistress of None series. And I think it's a fantastic thing that happened with the character. I think it gave her a lot of depth. I think it leaves a lot of space to continue. So it's good to listen to your characters because they often reveal who they are as you're writing them. So again, not being so precious or feeling like anything you put down on paper is real and so it can't possibly change, can really hamper the creative process, and it can get in the way of ultimately having a stronger story. So I guess that's what I have to say about Fate today. Thank you very much for joining me on Coffee Break. If you want to find my books, Riftmaker and No Rest for the Wicked are available on Amazon and various other ebook platforms. Also, if you've got a spare Audible credit lying around, No Rest for the Wicked is on audio, and I'm really, really pleased with the work that the voice actor did. So check it out, and I hope you have a wonderful day.